Good morning. Jamie Lula in the house with the one and only Andrew Belling. Good morning, everyone. I love it. You seem to be a little small in numbers, but big in energy. I like that. Good. Well, welcome to the Center for Spiritual Living Los Angeles. Woo, woo. Welcome to the Center for Spiritual Living Los Angeles. We are a metaphysical new thought spiritual community, and we welcome and celebrate all facets of life. I'm going to move this over right here for just a second. And we welcome you into our spiritual home here at 1200 North La Brea Avenue. It's my honor and privilege on behalf of the Board of Trustees and all practitioners and members. If you're new here for the first time, if we have anybody that's new for the first time, hello there, welcome. Welcome. Welcome to our Sunday morning celebration service, and we appreciate having you here and want you to know that we celebrate and honor who you are as an expression of the divine and your complete totality of who you are. The vision statement for our spiritual community is supporting individuals finding their personal self-empowerment through a spiritual awakening. What that means is that we support you on the journey of knowing who you are as a complete and whole divine being. That we know that for you, just like for each one of us, there's nothing that is required of you to be more spiritual or more godly. And yet, within each and every one of us, we have the opportunity to express and experience that power more and more and more through our thoughts, our beliefs, our actions, our reactions, and our interactions in life. And the reason that matters, our thoughts, actions, reactions, interactions with life, is because we know and believe that we live in a universe that is governed by spiritual law, just like physical laws that exist, and we get to experience those actions, thoughts, beliefs, interactions, reactions inform in our life. We primarily practice a teaching called the Science of Mind here, and in its modern incarnation, it is a philosophy, a faith, a way of life that believes there's only one power in the universe, and that power is expressed by you and by me. Put all that together, we celebrate all facets, all aspects of life, all gender, all sexual orientation, all histories of faith, all faiths, everywhere you came from, everywhere you're going to be. We celebrate you as the individualized expression of the divine. And as Dr. David Walker, our founding minister, used to say, we welcome one and we welcome all. And so to take us into a space of centering ourselves into this oneness of life, we do a ritual every Sunday morning. It's called Calling in the Light. And the ritual gives us the opportunity to call into our awareness the light of the divine that exists within each and every one of us. You get a chance to sing a little, to chant a little, pray a little, hear a little, feel a little, and get centered. And so our practitioner of the day that's doing that is Elizabeth Dad. She's coming forward to take us on that journey. I'm assuming you have the printed copy with you. I just realized I didn't print it for her because I had sent it to her in advance. So let's welcome Elizabeth Dad and her illuminator today. It's something that we've never had before in this process, which is a husband and wife team. So her husband, Terry Dad, will be our illuminator. So enjoy the journey that you go on. Good night, Gracie. So.
Calling in the light, calling in the light, calling in the light of love, calling in the light, calling in the light, calling in the light.
Good morning. The ritual we perform this morning is called Calling in the Light. Today we do this in order to promote the universal consciousness of life, which acknowledges that all peoples and all faiths, all sentient beings come from the one great universal presence, that which we call spirit. The purpose of this ceremony is to draw into our gathering this morning a conscious awareness of our oneness and the qualities we possess as complete expressions of the divine. As we feel the vibrations shift during this experience, may we become ever more aware of the light of the One that exists in and as all life, including you and me. Today, we will use each of the letters of the word light during this ritual to create an opportunity for each of us to embrace our light in a more expansive way. L. So as Terry lights the first candle, the letter L stands for life. In the book, The Science of Mind, life is defined as, quote, the animating principle of being, that inner something that makes everything live. I stands for individuality. Dr. Ernest Holmes states, Spirit has set the stamp of individuality upon itself and called it you. During our time together today, may we each embrace our uniqueness in a greater way and share it to the world with ease and grace. G stands for grace. In metaphysics, grace is defined as the givingness of spirit to its creation. It is not a special law, but a specialized one, meaning that the only way we experience it is through the recognition of it. And we do that now. H. As Terry lights the fourth candle for the letter H, it represents heaven. In this sense, heaven is not a physical destination, but a state of happiness. Heaven is within, yet it revolves around us as a result of that atmosphere, the vibrational frequency of conviction which our thought awakens within us. And T is for transformation, spiritual transformation, which constitutes a fundamental change in a person's meaning system, that is, in their basic definition of self, their interpretation of life, their overarching purpose and ultimate concerns. May we each experience transformation as we consciously experience and express our light in a more empowered way. And as Terry lights the sixth and final candle, that which is known as the healing candle, we ask you to take a moment and think of anyone you would like to silently place into the light of the healing flame, to experience the eternal and everlasting love of the divine.
I am love. I am peace. In my heart. I am free. I am spirit. I am soul. All together. We are whole. Calling in the light. Calling in the light. Calling in the light of love. Calling in the light. Calling in the light. Calling in the light of love. And so it is. And so it is. And so it is.
Let there be light. That was the first primal act of creation. And we reenact that creation every time we speak those words, "Let there be light." And so that light is called in, for it is already here with us, in us, as us. We are the light of the world, that which animates all, that which supports all, that which continues life ever onward. And so I use these letters of the word light as a perfect spiritual mind treatment, knowing that all there is one life, the life of being, a divine intelligence which has created all, each and every one of us, as we individualize that one life. And coming into a conscious awareness of our oneness and as our role as individualizations of this life, we open ourselves up to receive the grace of that one, the givingness of spirit, which is the power of love. Knowing this, being this, expressing this, we get to experience heaven upon earth, the divine here, right now. That heaven is our home. It is our field of experience. It is where we too create by calling forth the light from us. And this calling forth transforms us to our core by letting us embody who we truly are. Perfect spirits, put here to create, to call forth the light, and in so doing, transform not only ourselves, but our world. And so this is what we do today. We reenact that calling forth of the light. Let there be light, and so it is here through us as us. I release this treatment with great gratitude and confidence in its manifestation. And together we say, and so it is.
The fantastic husband and wife team of Terry and Elizabeth Dad. Right. He did the physical illuminating and she did the spiritual illuminating. Thank you. Beautiful. And to continue in the vein of illumination, I'm so happy to share the Bema today with our guest musician who we've shared time with together before here, and we all love him. He's got CDs for sale if you would like to acquire some of his music later. This is a man whose heart is so rich with love for his passion, which is his musical ministry and our teaching and our philosophy. It has been for many, many years. He just returned home from being one of the guest musicians at the Northwest New Thought Rally. He's on the road a good bit giving his love, and he's here to give it to you today. Please welcome to the Bema, Jamie Lula.
Thank you. My brother from another mother who got the hair and I didn't. Bastard. This is a new song. It felt really pertinent. Gary and I wrote this a couple Mondays ago before the conference. And everything that was going on, the Kavanaugh hearings and stuff. And I read these lyrics out loud while we were driving. And I said, this applies to this man and to every other man. You know, I can't just suggest it applies to some and not others. Walk a mile or a minute, in another man's shoes. He's got a path to take to find his truth. Any way you spin it, he's a lot like you, finding his faith on roads that you'd never choose. Keep on walking. Keep on walking. Don't let it cloud your vision. Love be your only mission always. Let go of all conditions. Love be your only mission always. Keep on walking. Keep on walking. Tell a tale you're in it. Hear a brother man's blues. Got a destination and no excuse. Why do you condemn it when it's not your own? You can't unsee it once the light has shone. Keep on walking. Keep on walking. Don't let it cloud your vision. Love be your only mission always. Let go of all conditions. Love be your only mission always. Don't let it cloud your vision. Love be your only mission always. Let go of all conditions. Love be your only mission always. Oh, keep on walking. Keep on walking. One foot in front of the other, hand in hand, one with another. Walk with your sister and brother always. One foot in front of the other, hand in hand, one with another. Walk with your sister and brother always. Oh, don't let it cloud your vision. Love be your only mission always. Let go of all conditions. Love be your only mission always. Oh, yeah. Don't let it cloud your vision. Love be your only mission always. Let go of all conditions. Love be your only mission always. Keep on walking. Keep on walking. Oh yeah. Keep on walking. Keep on walking.
Jamie Lula and Andy Belling. What great instruction to let go of all conditions. Just keep on walking. It seems like that could be part of the curriculum from our class that we're taking right now, the gifts of living an abundant life. We were just going over those basic components this last week and looking at how to set and then manifest our intentions. And one of the keys to that was not looking at the outcome, not looking at the conditions of it all, of staying connected to choosing love. Not love, as I say almost every Sunday morning here, as a human condition, but love as the divine, one of the qualities of the divine that exists equally among each and every one of us. And its definition is the self-givingness of spirit whose desire is to create more out of itself. And the only way it can do do that is through us. Having established that the only way that we can experience it is through our thoughts, our actions, our reactions, and our interactions in life, then it means that we are in control, if you will, of how we release our divinity out into the world, or our love. And that's really what we're called here to do. To not get attached to how it's received, to not get attached as to how it shows up, to actually let go of the how completely in it, to stay out of, what's it called in the class, Dennis? You'll know the what kind of hows? The cursed hows. So, ooh. How many of you got a cursed how, right? So anyway, yes, so we are now in the month of October in the year 2018. I want us to say hello to those that are watching us live stream. We didn't do that before. Hello, live streamers. And I've got the camera blocked so they're not seeing the back of anyone's head. It's just seeing just this. So being in the month of October in the year 2018, we started last Sunday with a new theme. And the theme of this month is living from your awakened self. Now, the guidance that just came out of the lyrics from Jamie and Gary that he's referring to as his songwriting partner, Gary Lynn Floyd, and they have a partnership in some of the music they do called Floyd Lula. You can go online and find that. It's wonderful music. But in those lyrics, we were just instructed, as I just spoke about, in a how-to, if you will, a instructional booklet on how to indeed live from our awakened self. If we are choosing to live as from an emanated state of being of love, then of course we are indeed awakened and we are living from that place. Easier said than done, I would say. How about you? It could be a somewhat complex task in life to commit to living from one's awakened self. And yet it's not if it's broken down into a really practical approach on how to do that. And my philosophy of the way to put this teaching to work is to balance the esoteric components of this teaching with a practical way of showing up. And then while looking at it with those two balanced, then go as deep as you can into your soul while going as high as you can in your mind. And so letting that dance, if you will, of the humanity and your beloved be the dance that sparks within you that awakening of the self. So I want you to hear that theme again this morning and just let it rest in your soul. Living from your awakened self. It resonates within me when I say it. And I've been kind of embracing this idea since I allowed Spirit to give it to me as a theme for this month. Because, once again, a big charge and yet a great payoff. Living from your awakened self. Well, to live from our awakened self, we have to be in tune with what our self is. Well, what is the self? Self with an uppercase S, I'm speaking of. Dr. Holmes in the book, The Science of Mind, addresses it in this context. He says, our self is subjective and is the immediate connection between the absolute and the relative. It is our share of the law of life and immediately connects us with the creativeness of the whole. Very few words, but immensely powerful. Would you agree? Hear them anew. I read it over and over and over again. It says our self is subjective, meaning it is that which is beyond the conscious mind. And it is the immediate connection between the absolute, that which is beyond the conscious mind, and the relative, the experience of the conscious mind. Now, when I say it's that which is beyond the conscious mind, I want to be really clear. It doesn't mean that the conscious mind cannot have some impact on either A, its content, or the way that we use it. Both of those are true. We can have an impact on its content, what we place into it as a subjective state of mind, as well as how we use it through our thoughts, choices, actions, reactions. I won't repeat those all the times. So that's what it means, where it's that immediate connection, that spark, if you will, that place, if you will, if there could be a place, where the absolute and the relative comes together within us, the individualized expression of the only thing that is. He goes on to say it's our share of the law, and immediately immediately connects us with the creativeness of the whole. It's saying the minute that we move into that connection, we are connected to the creativeness of the only and the allness of creation itself. That's what's taking place. So our self can be only then be experienced, our uppercase S, that absoluteness, right, can only be accessed through the individualized self, the lowercase s. That too, big idea, right? So the higher self, the absolute self, can only be experienced, tapped in through the individualized self. And what that means is that every single individual's experience and expression and connection to the uppercase S is going to be unique and different. And yet it's tapped into the thing that we all share that is not unique and different. It reminds me of my favorite Ernest Holmes quote, which I'm sure you know I'm going to say because I use it all the time, but I think this frames it correctly. Spirit has placed the stamp of individuality upon itself and called it you. We're being told in that definition or that statement or that quote in regards to this is that as we become awakened to the power of the divine that exists within us, regardless of what we call it, it exists. Let's call it the self, uppercase S in this moment. That the minute we tap into that, our unique interaction with it through our thoughts, our being, our interactions, our reactions, our belief of what it is, our faith in how it works, then our experience reflects that state of mind. Well, the question I have is that how do we know that that immediate connection is happening? How do we know it's happening? We're being told it's happening. How do we know? Well, I think the only ways that we can know is first and foremost accept that it is. I think questioning it is a waste of time. Just accepting that it's happening. And from that state of mind, then choose to move into it with thought receptivity. In other words, being receptive to what our thought how we can use our thought to impact that spark, that connection, if you will, by allowing the wisdom of the divine that exists within us to guide us into how we use it and accepting that it's happening. And then once we have established that we're accepting that the wisdom of the divine exists within us, it is one of the 8 qualities of the divine, by the way, then from there, giving it instruction to allow our intuition to rise up and to guide us in how we express it. In other words, accept that it's here, believe the construct that our minds impact it, our thoughts impact it, choose for ourselves that the wisdom of the divine already exists within us and let it rise up and meet our thoughts, and then as opposed to have our thoughts guide us through our process, let our intuition guide us through that process. Let that place within us that knows that it knows that it knows that it knows be the guide to how we use our thoughts. In other words, how we use the law of life to bring forth within us an awakening, which ultimately will create and cause for us an opportunity to be empowered. And then to ask ourselves at all times, if you question whether this is happening for you, ask yourself, have I ever had an awakening before? The answer is yes. Will I ever have an awakening again? Yes. Then choose in the moment to place your attention on the intention of continually living from a state of an awakening. In other words, allow yourself to be present in the presence of the divine as you choose to walk, as Jamie said, along the journey of choosing love as the self-givingness of spirit whose desire is to create more of itself out of itself through you and through me, and separate yourself from everything else. Now that, ladies and gentlemen, would be living from your awakened self. What our goal is in life is to become more and more intimate with the self itself. And in so doing, then we, lowercase s, become awakened. And then we get to choose when we have that awakening whether or not we're going to live as awakened beings. Rumi addresses it in this way when he says, I went searching for God, that uppercase S, if you will, and found only myself. He went, so I went searching for myself and found only God, the uppercase S. Hallelujah, right? Hear that again. I went searching for God. I'm going to use the word self, uppercase S. I went searching for self and found only myself. So I went searching for myself and found only self. What does that mean? It means there's only one thing ever taking place. In our teaching, we call it the activity of God often, but it's really the activity of the self. And then we get to experience and express it and become aware of it through ourselves. So what does that mean for us then once we are armed with that information? It's this: be aware of what is unfolding in, as, through, and around you at all times. In other words, raise your vibrational frequency, as I talked about in the month of September, to be consciously aware of what's going on in, around, through, and as you all the time. And as you raise your vibrational frequency of that activity, then you're changing what you're emanating out to the world, and the law of life is always doing its part in bringing back to you a reflection of that, hence the outcome awakening. Does it make sense? I knew it did. I didn't need the yes. I knew it did, but I like the yes. Does it make sense? Yes. Good. So the challenge then is that you have been taught in this teaching to pay attention to your thoughts, and from your thoughts, feel your feelings. From your feelings, create a vibration. From your vibrations, tend to your echo. From your echo, pay attention to your conscious mind. You know what that makes me think? Oy vey. That's a lot to do. And yet, it's still what we're called to do. I saw this morning, and I think it's so appropriate to what I'm talking about today. And I can't give you the visual, but I'll share it with you. There's two tents out in the darkness, and there's one sleeping in one tent and one in the other, but there's chatter going on, and one's considered the mind and the other is considered the heart in the tent. And here's what the mind says: I'm worried. The heart says, just relax. The mind says, but I'm totally lost now. The heart says, just follow me. The mind says, but you've never been there before. And the heart says, trust me, you'll love it. And out of the quietness of the space, the soul says, if you two would just shut up, I'll show you the map. Here, I'll show you the map. What we're being told there is that we don't have to find the map. Why? Because the map is already within us. And yet we keep getting in the way of it showing up. We're trying to micromanage our thoughts to think the highest thought possible. We're trying to make sure that our feelings are in alignment with our divinity. And yet all of those things are important. But yet what we've learned is that if we were to listen, not just with our ears, but that within that silence, the only energy and voice that matters comes to us. And it rises up when we let it. If you don't push it back down, it rises up. And then let it guide you as you walk step by step by step. And shut up the mind. Shut up the heart. Long enough to feel what's going on within you and around you and as you. It's easy to do in this room of this sacred space of like-minded thinkers, of people who are open to finding their spiritual awakening and being personally self-empowered. It's easy to do when you've heard this beautiful music of telling you to let love be the only way and to not get attached to conditions. And yet 11:06 comes and we're done here in this room, and you go out and the conditions of a flour-based product with some chemicals and some sugar wait there for you, or more caffeine to get you all jacked up to then get in your car and get into the traffic, and you turn your radio on and you turn on CNN and you go out there and all the temptations of life come in the way and you're like, all of that starts again, right? And so that's not going to change. That's not going to change. It's not going to change. And yet, it can appear to change when you do. When you do. When you choose not to engage in the right? When you choose not to scream at the television or the person in the car that cut you off. Or when you scream at yourself internally of like, I don't like my life. Why can't I fill in the blank? But those are just simply opportunities, conditional experiences for you get to look at yourself and go, is that an echo? Is it an echo of me as an awakened self? Am I expressing the energy that I desire to express? And if it's not, then change your energy. Don't attempt to change the circumstances or the condition. Change who you know yourself to be and trust with the faith of the universe, the faith of God, as Ernest says, not in one but of it, that it must bring back to you an experience that is reflective of who you know yourself to be. Practicality is what I spoke about a moment ago. I want to give you some tips to improve your awareness on this journey of becoming more awakened. And why is awareness important? Deepak Chopra says that the only thing that matters in life is our awareness. Our awareness of our ability to be aware. Our awareness of our awareness. Our awareness of the law. If we didn't have our awareness of the ability to the rest of what's going on, the ability to engage, to react, to interact, to think, then it wouldn't matter. It's from that awareness that we can pay attention to what we are, or how we are showing up in those moments. So here are the 8 tips. 1, be aware of your inner world. Many would say that that's the only world there is, the inner world. Be aware of your emotions. Be aware of your body. Think about the consequences of your actions and be aware of other people, be aware of your environment, be on your own as often as possible, and do meditation practice. Now, as I was reading that again this morning, what popped up for me is that how often in our life do we hear it as this: be aware of your inner world. Be aware of your emotions. And that's not what it's saying. It's saying be aware of your inner world. Be aware of your emotions. Be aware of your body. Think about the consequences of your actions. Be aware of other people, not in fear, but in faith that they're a reflection of who you know yourself to be as an awakened being. To be aware that God is the only thing taking place, or whatever word you want to use, ever. For me, one of the things that I like to do in creating an opportunity to become more awakened is listen to music. And I've been listening, my wonderful students in class, I shared it with them, a trilogy of music by Nikki Harris. Jamie, you know Nikki, right? And there's songs that's these spirituals that she's singing, and we've got some musicians that are going to have them for us one day here. Andy's working on that. But the first song is Just a Closer Walk with Thee. And as she sings it, just a closer walk with thee, immediately my soul starts opening up, right? Because it makes sense to me, and it takes me back to my childhood when I was being receptive to whatever this spiritual journey that I was on, that I was being called into doing before the church got involved and told me that I shouldn't have been a homosexual, all right? And so, but the journey had already been awakened within me, right? And then from there, she moves into other songs. And then it's Amazing Grace. And then it's Faith. And the reason I'm sharing that with you is I'm encouraging you to find that which speaks to your soul and engage in it, dance with it, play with it as often as possible. Because the goal this month is to become aware of our ability to live from our awakened self. Not just to know that we can have an awakening, not just to know what an awakening is, but to live from that. So there's 26 signs that show that you're living an awakened life, and I'm not going to read all of them to you, but I'm going to read from this article for you because I think it distinguishes what this means in other terminology. The term awakening has widely been used lately to describe the phenomenon of a spontaneous change of consciousness. Awakening can be described as a realization that there is a higher dimension of reality which is rooted in a universal consciousness of unity. Now, we've heard that before in just different language. What's it's saying there is that there is a consciousness of oneness, that all that there is oneness, right? But the awakening component is the spontaneous change of consciousness to this this reality. Goes on to write that such a realization is inevitably accompanied with a heightened, positive, or life-affirming emotional state, invoking feelings of joy, connectedness, outpouring of love, and frequently intense ecstasy. Anybody had those? Yeah, anybody want more? Yeah, prolonged intense ecstasy. How about that? Goes on to say, it often has a lasting effect on the life of the experiencer, but it can also take a lifetime to integrate such experience into our everyday lives. There can be a number of triggers for STEs. Hear that correctly. There can be a number of triggers for STEs, which stands for spiritual transformative experiences, or for such sudden change in consciousness to occur, such as near-death experiences, drugs, shock, trauma, intense appreciation of beauty, or involuntary or intentional rising of the Kundalini energy, which can then be the result of a prolonged meditation. Anyone ever had that? Anyone ever gone into a weekend meditation program or a weekend spiritual growth program or a day-long thing and you come out and you're like high as a kite? Right? Happens to me many Sundays after I come off of this bema. It's because you've awakened within you that Kundalini energy. Well, what is Kundalini energy, you might ask? Well, Kundalini is a Sanskrit term for the ancient India that identifies the arising of an energy and consciousness which has been coiled at the base of the spine since birth, and is the source of the life force or pranic energy or chi or bioenergy that everybody knows. Now let's remember, as I'm addressing this, which is somewhat unusual in a metaphysical talk, but I still want to do it because I'm unusual, all right, to look at this as, and it's really not if we put it in the context of what we learned last month, which is every single thing is energy, Albert Einstein writes, and that's all there is to it. Match the frequency of the reality that you want, and you cannot help but get that reality as a result of being conscious of the energy that you're choosing. He went on to say, this is not philosophy, it's physics. Now hear that in that context as I talk about the Kundalini energy that exists within you, that's also known as pranic energy, chi, or bioenergy. Yogic science suggests that this energy triggered the formation of the child in the womb, and then coils 3.5 times at the base of the spine to hold the energy field in stasis until we die. When it uncoils and uncoils and returns to its source. Now we've heard before that when someone dies, their energy does what? It leaves the body. Right? I think we would all agree here that we believe that if everything is energy, there is energy within us. Would you guys agree with that? This is just giving a label or a name to it, by the way. All right? Kundalini, I love saying it, may unravel and arise from the base of the spine or sometimes from the feet due to spiritual practices or in response to life events. And when this happens, it may move gradually, uncoiling like a snake or quickly and explosively into the gut, the heart, or the head. This event can be startling and chaotic, frightening or blissful, and it usually triggers months and years of new sensations and changes in the person who awakens it. It may feel like the body's wiring has moved from 110 to 220, and it takes time to adapt to it. What it's talking about is that spiritual awakening that happens within us when we become consciously aware that we have the capacity to be consciously aware that there's only one thing taking place and that we're plugged into it. It's that unity of all life. This writing goes on to say it is possible to find acknowledgement of the spiritual movement in many yogic and tantric traditions. Tantric Buddhism, Taoism, Gnostic mystical tradition, and some Native American risings and indigenous societies. An image of a rising snake in the body signifies its existence in the esoteric art of many cultures. Kundalini, if you will, is a metaphor and it's an example of energy when intentional spiritual practice has been done for a length of time with others or for others in a period of times. Has anyone ever done EST or Insight or any of those things? I'm sure many of you in the room have. When you come out of there, it's that feeling that you have. You've awakened that coiled snake within you. Remember, a snake is the image we're talking about of energy rising up within you and giving what appears to be a new life force within you. And through a spiritual awakening, this happens, but the key to its happening is how does it turn from a singular happening into sustainability? That's what we're talking about here. Well, here's how it's addressed. A spiritual awakening often has a lasting and transforming effect on one's life. Has it on yours? Okay. I was going to say, if not, Jesus, lock the doors. No, so there's a great difference, as written here, between awakening and leading an awakened life. People who had an awakening experience often feel like exiles after having experienced that their true home lies elsewhere. But once our awakened lives have become the status quo, we are no longer interested in leaving this world in favor of some spiritual heaven, because this world will have become our true home, perhaps for the first time. It's the heaven that Elizabeth was speaking of in the spiritual mind treatment. It was that we realized that the only place we ever need to be is not a physical location. It's within. It's an awareness of that which is within. And it's within me, and it's within you, and it's within all sentient beings. And from there, once we become aware of that, we realize our focus then becomes shifted. In that moment, we may even lose interest in a spiritual life or spiritual pursuit simply because spirit or consciousness reveals itself to be in every single thing, everything where we place our attention on. Nothing is exempt. Now, during this time, as people that become awakened to this presence within them, they'll oftentimes call it the silent watcher, or God, or simply stillness, and it will reveal to us the inner workings of the circumstances surrounding us. Best of all, we begin to think and act like the silent watcher. In other words, when we find this awakening and this kundalini begins to rise up within us, we're presented an opportunity to let that be a single experience or singular experiences, or we can choose to let that be our way of life. And in so doing, then we bring that awakened presence with us every single place we go. But that takes being attentive to our awareness. It takes attention, being aware of our awareness. The Buddha tells us, based on this experience, what a man once told him this, and I want you to follow this as a practice in life. A man once told the Buddha, "I want happiness." The Buddha replied, "First remove I," that's ego. Then remove want, that's desire. And now all you're left with is happiness. That's the same with awakened, to be awakened. If you want to be awakened, remove the I. Remove the want. And you're just left with awakened. You're just left with awakened. And so from a practical perspective, I'm going to give you some key characteristics of living an awakened life. Not living from awakenings, but living from an awakened life as you move beyond the sacred safe space that we're sharing together this morning. And become aware of your ability to be aware of how you engage what's going on in front of you from the day on. And asking yourself, are you willing to do what is required to release what you need to release so that that snake uncoils within you and rises up? Not something you need to be aware of, but something that you get to be aware of. And the first key characteristic is attention is focused on the present moment. The second is a persistent feeling of being home, regardless of where you are. The third is having an enhanced aesthetic appreciation for everything. The fourth is an enhanced empathy for your fellow human. The next is that you live life with a non-judgmental attitude. This next one is that you live from a place of increased creativity and joy and engagements, which then benefits others. The next is that you live with an awareness of a benevolent presence, which may be referred to as God, the higher self, the guide, the guardian angel, the silent watcher, or just simply the presence of a universal consciousness. I love it when I got into this teaching that I heard Dr. Ernest Holmes call it the thing itself. The next step is a detachment from conflicts and enhanced modes of dealing with them. And the last is your dreams become more coherent and lucid. Your dreams become more coherent and lucid. Why is that? That's because you're living from a place of a mindset that is awakened. And it's constantly doing its part to bring through to you a reflection of that Kundalini energy that has been released, that is married with the state of mind that has committed itself to letting go of the I, letting go of the want, and just letting be that which is. And that which is the self of God individualized as you, uppercase S-E-L-F, complete, whole, perfect, love, light, peace, power, beauty, joy, and wisdom. That's you, that's me. And then we get to express that, both awakened, physically, mentally, and emotionally, and while we're sleeping. And we all benefit. Thank you. Thank you.